I'm 74 years old, and what I'm about to tell you is going to upset you. Because if you own a home right now, it's already costing you more than you think. And the cost isn't just money. It's the years you're losing right now believing that ownership equals security. Everything you've been taught about owning a home, everything your parents told you, everything you've worked toward is a lie. Not because homeownership itself is bad, but because the story they sold you about what it means to own property is designed to keep you calm while you lose decades. I know because I lived it. I owned a home for 40 years. I did everything right, and I still ended up trapped. This isn't for me. I'm running out of time. I'm making this because I see you doing exactly what I did. And if nobody stops you, you're going to wake up at 72 the same way I did with equity you can't spend and options you don't have. They told you owning a home makes you secure. It doesn't. It makes you feel secure, and that feeling costs more than you'll ever know. Let me tell you how I learned that. It was November 2019. I was 70. My wife had been gone for 3 years. The house, 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, the one we bought in 1996, was paid off, fully paid off. No mortgage, just me and $400,000 in equity. I should have felt free. Instead, I got a letter from the county. Property taxes were going up again. Not a little, 18% in 1 year. I sat at the kitchen table and did the math. Between taxes, insurance, utilities, and basic maintenance, I was spending $32,000 a year just to keep the house. I was on a fixed income, Social Security and a small pension, $58,000 total. More than half my income was going into a building I lived in alone. And that's when I realized I wasn't living in the house. The house was living off me. I called my daughter that night, told her I might need to sell. She said, "Dad, you've been saying that for 5 years." She was right. I had been saying it, but I hadn't done it because selling the house meant admitting I had made a mistake, not in buying it, but in believing that owning it was the same thing as planning my life. That phone call, that moment sitting at the table with the tax letter in my hand, that's when I realized there was no responsible version of my life where this fixed itself without sacrifice. That's when the 40-year experiment ended, and there was no version of this where I could fix it without losing time I didn't have. Let me back up. I bought my first house in 1984. I was 34, married, 1 kid on the way. Everyone told me the same thing. Buy now, build equity, lock in your payment. My parents said it, my co-workers said it, even the guy at the bank said it like it was the law. So I did it. And for the first 10 years, it felt like progress. We were building something. We had a yard. We had neighbors. We had proof we were doing it right. But I wasn't really living during those years. I was performing. I was doing what people told me adults do. I was checking boxes. Own a home? Check. Pay the mortgage on time? Check. Upgrade when you can afford it? Check. I thought I was ahead because I owned something. But I wasn't ahead. I was on a script, and I didn't even know I was reading from it. That's what you're doing right now. You think you're building your life. You're not. You're following instructions someone gave you 20 years ago. And those instructions don't end with freedom. They end with constraint you won't see until it's too late to avoid. In 1996, we sold that first house and bought the one I'm still in now. Bigger house, better neighborhood, better schools. We told ourselves it was an investment. It wasn't. It was lifestyle inflation with a mortgage attached. But I didn't see that then. I saw a nicer kitchen, a bigger yard, a house that would appreciate, and I believed that appreciation was the same thing as wealth. For the next 20 years, I poured money into that house. New roof, finished basement, deck, landscaping. Every upgrade felt like I was building value. But I wasn't building value. I was spending. And every dollar I spent on the house was a dollar I didn't put into savings, into investments, into anything I could actually access without selling. By the time I turned 60, I had a beautiful house and $18,000 in the bank. I was house rich, and I was broke. The same math you're running right now. You're upgrading because you can afford the payment. You're choosing the nicer finishes, the bigger space. And every dollar you spend on the house is a dollar you're not building anywhere else. You just won't feel it until you're 70 and the options are already gone. Here's what they don't tell you about equity. It doesn't exist until you're willing to give up the thing it's in. You can have 500,000 in your walls and still be one emergency away from panic, because equity isn't money, it's potential. And potential doesn't pay for the new furnace when it dies in January. I learned that the hard way. 2008, the market crashed. I had equity on paper, but I couldn't touch it. Couldn't refinance, couldn't get a home equity line. The banks looked at me like I was radioactive. And I remember thinking, what's the point of owning something if I can't use it when I need it? But I didn't sell. I didn't downsize. I didn't change anything, because selling felt like losing, and I had spent 25 years tying my identity to that house. It was proof I had succeeded, proof I had built something, proof I wasn't one of those people who rented their whole lives. So I stayed, and I kept paying, and I kept telling myself it would work out. You're doing that right now. You're staying in a house that's too expensive, too big, or too much work because downsizing feels like failure. That's the same reason I stayed. And every year you wait, the choice gets harder. One day you won't be choosing anymore. The choice will already have been made. My wife died in 2016, sudden, unexpected. And the house, which had already felt too big, became enormous. 4 bedrooms for one person, a yard I didn't want to maintain, rooms I didn't go into. But I stayed. Not because it made sense, because I couldn't imagine not being the guy who lived here, because the house had stopped being shelter and started being my proof that I hadn't failed. That's what they don't tell you. That your house will stop being a place you live and start being the thing you can't let go of, because it's the only evidence you have that your life meant something. And by the time you figure that out, you've wasted years you can't get back. 3 years after my wife died, I got that tax letter. And I finally did the math I should have done at 65, at 60, at 55. I had equity, but I had no margin, no flexibility, no ability to handle surprise costs without stress. I had spent 40 years building a monument to my own assumptions, and all those assumptions were wrong. I thought owning a home made me secure. It didn't. It made me dependent on the value of one asset I couldn't easily convert. I thought equity meant freedom. It didn't. Equity feels like security until you need options. I thought paying off the house would solve everything. It didn't. It just replaced mortgage payments with tax bills, insurance premiums, and repair costs I couldn't defer. I thought the house would take care of me in retirement. It didn't. It became another expense I had to plan around. And worst of all, I thought owning the house meant I was doing fine, that I didn't need to save aggressively, that I didn't need to build liquidity, that I didn't need to plan beyond I own property. The house became my excuse not to do the harder, less visible work that actually builds security. That's the trap, not the house itself, the illusion that owning it is enough. And you're in that trap right now. If you keep living exactly the way you are now, here's how this ends. You won't feel panic. You'll feel quiet restriction. You'll start saying no to things you used to say yes to, not because you don't want them, because you can't afford them without touching the house. You'll plan your life around costs instead of choices. You'll calculate everything twice. You'll defer, you'll delay. You'll tell yourself next year will be better. It won't be. You'll watch other people retire with flexibility while you're trying to figure out how to keep the heat on without selling. You'll have conversations with your kids where they ask if you're okay and you'll say yes because you can't admit you're not. You'll look at your equity and feel nothing. Not pride, not security, just the dull weight of knowing it's locked in a place you can't leave without upheaval. And one day, maybe at 70, maybe at 75, you'll sit at a table with a letter in your hand and realize you've been living someone else's script for 40 years. And the lesson will be the same, whether you learn it now or later. The only difference is how much time you lose. So let me ask you something. If you died tomorrow, would you be satisfied with how you've lived? Not with what you own, with how you've lived, with the choices you made, with the years you spent working towards something that might not actually protect you. Sit with that. Because I didn't ask myself that question until it was too late to change the answer. Here's what you need to do, not eventually, right now. Open your bank app right now. Don't wait until later. Don't tell yourself you'll do it tonight. Add up your total housing costs, not just the mortgage, everything, taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, repairs. Write the number down. Don't estimate. Use real numbers. Now divide it by your annual income. If that percentage scares you, good. Pay attention to that feeling. Next, calculate your liquidity, not your net worth, your liquidity. The cash and investments you could access in 30 days without selling your house. Write that number down too. Say it out loud. Hear yourself say the number. Could you cover 6 months of expenses with that? A year? Could you handle a major emergency without borrowing or selling? If the answer is no, you're not as secure as you think you are. Finally, ask yourself, if I had to move in a year, could I? Not would you want to. Could you? Financially, logistically, emotionally. Because the moment the answer to that question is no, you've crossed from ownership into dependence. And dependence is the opposite of security. I'm 74. I've spent the last 5 years trying to undo what I spent the previous 40 years building. I'm downsizing now, selling the house, moving into something smaller, cheaper, manageable. I should have done this 15 years ago, but I didn't, because I thought owning the house meant I was safe, because I confused equity with options, because I let the house replace the actual planning I should have been doing. My regrets aren't about buying a home. They're about what I didn't do because I thought owning it was enough. I didn't save aggressively in my 40s when I had time. That's the same reason you're not maxing out your retirement accounts right now. You think the house is doing that work for you. It's not. I didn't build liquidity in my 50s when I had income. That's what you're doing every time you choose to renovate instead of invest. You're choosing the thing that feels like progress over the thing that actually builds freedom. I didn't downsize in my 60s when I had energy. That's what you're doing right now if you're in a house that costs more than it should. You're waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. Every year you wait, it gets harder. I waited. I delayed. I assumed it would all work out because I owned something. And now I'm here, selling a house I loved because I can't afford to keep it, moving into something smaller because I have no choice, watching my options shrink because I spent 40 years thinking ownership was the same thing as freedom. Later isn't neutral. Later is a decision. A home can be shelter or it can be a trap. The difference is what you do while you still have options. Every year you delay building liquidity. Your future choices shrink. Every year you wait to downsize. It gets harder. Every year you tell yourself the house will take care of things. You're giving away another year of flexibility you won't get back. You don't lose your life at once. You give it away quietly. One deferred decision at a time. One expensive repair at a time. 1 year of not building liquidity at a time. And then you're 70. And the story is already written. And you're left holding equity you can't spend and choices you don't have. That's not a threat. It's just math. Owning a home made me feel safe. Planning would have actually made me safe. My house didn't fail me, my assumptions did. And equity feels like security until you need options. You can learn this now while you still have options, or you can learn it later when you don't. Either way, the lesson is the same. The timing is the only difference. Don't make the mistakes I made, not because home ownership is wrong, but because thinking it's enough is the most expensive mistake you'll never see coming. The house isn't the villain. Delay is, and you're delaying right now.